Welcome to my platform. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on your location or anytime you are meeting this video on YouTube. And if you like what I do here, please, after watching, subscribe, put on your notification bell, set it to all notifications so that you'll be able to know when I upload a new video. In this platform, we react to all forms of video. What we do before putting the video, analyze it, and we sit down there to watch it together with you. Then later we'll come to the comment section to talk about it. Of course, everybody is entitled to his or her opinion, but let us always do it constructively in the comment section. Like you can see, this is my t-shirt, this is my merchandise. If you like this.
Yeah, good morning. Good to see you again.
Good morning, good to have you. Well, let's get right into it. The country is certainly not done yet with the issues of the secessionist agenda. The IPOB on the one hand, and you will have noticed that the vipers from nowhere have also sprung up, making claims and demands. And of course, the Yoruba agenda with Sunday Igboho question on the other side. Both organizations, the Ohaneze Ndigbo and the Yoruba group, are saying that they will not mind having a discussion. Thankfully, Abubakar Malami, the Attorney General of the Federation, is also saying that the federal government is disposed to this kind of solution. How do you think that the country and the principal actors in this game should navigate this seemingly necessary approach to finding order and solution to the secessionist agitations all over the country?
All right, thanks, Steve. In all of this, really, I don't see anything extraordinary. I don't see anything inconsistent with the shades, with the faces that evolve in the course of nation building. And of course, this is usually the character when we're talking about a nation that is filled with difference, a nation that is as disaggregated like Nigeria. Oftentimes, you see sections of people, even individual activists, springing up, because of some concerns, to pursue some agitation, because of some concerns, to carry out some crusade. It's something that happens in a conflation of ethnicity like our own. So it's nothing really extraordinary, and that's why we've always made the argument that the best solution most of the time is about dialogue, it's about peace building, about consensus building. And of course, it comes, when there's an understanding that we're not naturally or even organically the same, but the way out of it is to find common grounds, so that we can move forward. And of course, in modern times, we have seen how the state is no longer the sole monopoly of arms, and ammunition. We have seen our arms and ammunition, massive in the hands of non-state actors. It is not just peculiar to Nigeria, it is not just peculiar to Africa. We also see it in even more so-called civilized climes as well. They come out in different shapes, to ventilate or even to pursue their causes, as the case could be. So against that background, therefore, it is always better to look for a way out, through peace, to avoid destruction in a situation where destruction as a weapon, as a means of agitation, will set systems and societies back, because after destruction, of course, you have to come back again to the round table, to bring about peace, to negotiate the way forward. So the beginning point should actually be discussion, should actually be dialogue. But it appears in the first instance that we've lost the sense of being dialogic, and that's why we talk in the name of force. Boko Haram has held us for the past 12 years or so, and of course, while the military is pounding them, in the kinetic means, they are also looking for avenues, non-kinetic means, to resolve the crisis. So it just tells us how potent, the non-kinetic can be, how potent dialogue can be. So it's a good way forward, coming from the agitators, welcoming dialogue, welcoming discussion, and it's also even more welcoming that the Attorney General is in sync, with these suggestions. So, with the way forward now is to discuss maybe the method. How do we go about this? Considering the fact that it's a very noble, graceful, and righteous way to go. Dialogue, that is.
Yes, Professor Adeniyi, dialogue is great, but, the issue of political solution, do you see it as the dialogue that Abubakar Malami is offering? Because, Banji Akintoye, the leader of the self-determination group, Ilana Omodua, has said that the federal government has to clarify what they actually mean by political solution.
Yeah, but I think at the moment we're just still at the level of discussion. When the process advances, I see the discussion moving beyond the office of the Attorney General, because it's just an individual and it represents a section of the legal or the social sector, which is the legal framework. Other sectors will come in and expand the realm of understanding, the range, of ideas that we're going to be bringing in. So political solution largely, it simply means that instead of going to war, instead of crisis, instead of discussion, let's deploy wisdom. Let's discuss. Let's talk about these things. Let's get into a process of give and take. What can you give? What can I take? How do we resolve these in a dialectics of within the dialectics of give and take, and that's the point we've always been making. I've also advanced the argument that in politicking, in allocating state offices, politicians are very smart, but when it comes to questions around governance, around bringing about peace, around fostering consensus, we get into the business of governmentality, sitting at a supposed strong pedestal, and we think that force is always the solution, forgetting the fact that agitators sometimes feel a sense of ventilation, and in ventilating sometimes they might go overboard in the sense in which the state will want to look at it. But it's a natural process, it's a natural process, it's a psychological process that can be resolved. There's a higher level of understanding, a higher level of grace, which the government, can alone, show. And of course, the Attorney General has spoken in that direction. So what is left now is for the government, to also iron out modalities for working it out, realizing the fact that we also have state institutions, established institutions, that will feel probably some sense of territoriality. I'm talking about as set arms of government. But of course, further understanding, further discussions with these arms of government can also create room, for us to have this political solution. So it's just a matter of understanding and tolerance at the end of the day, Audrey.
Understood, Dr. Adeniyi. But how much of impact do you think that this sort of thinking and approach will have on the ongoing trial of Nnamdi Kanu, for example, and of course the trial that is going on as far as Sunday Igboho is concerned in Cotonou, given that he's also a kind of a wanted man here. So if the thinking appears to be reconciliatory and is accepting the fact that we can dialogue, how much of impact do you think it will have on the court cases that we are dealing with already?
Well, Steve, this is not going to be the first time we're going to see this kind of situation. But my take is, anytime government looks the direction of political solution, the direction of dialogue, they're probably just showing a greater grace, not necessarily because they don't have the courage, or maybe they are being Lilliput, or maybe they are weak. No, it's just a sign of grace, a sign of wisdom, so that we can have peace, on the global scale. And we have gone this part before. Resort to court is actually not supposed to be the first solution, or what we should be talking about now, because If it's just court can be inanimate, is usually filled with technicalities, but it's not technical. These matters are not technical matters. They're matters that originated from the nuance of living as a collective, from the fact that we couldn't manage our difference to the extent in which there will be harmony. So court is probably a state process that should be followed because the statutes define it, because it's a logical process when you apprehend somebody who is perceived to be disturbing the peace of the system. But there is a higher level of discussion which can make the court, which can just render the court process maybe unimportant, and of course it's about discussion. Humans, officials file the court action. Officials, when discussed with, when there's a level of understanding, they can also pull out the matters from the court, consequent upon understanding, in the first instance. And understandings can come through elders sitting around the table, religious leaders sitting around the table, and we'll have them aplenty in this country on all the sides. We've resolved, directly or indirectly, that we want to live together as a nation, and we're not the first nation that will be disaggregated, that will be replete with difference. We have had it. There are examples for us to cite in history. France was once disaggregated until the French Revolution, and painstaking efforts were made, to bring about unity. Italy was also along that line. And what about the United Nations that we all talk about? As we're discussing, it's a disaggregated nation, a nation of immigrants, even though not necessarily along ethnic lines, but also inclusive of it, But what has happened is just about management, dialogue and discussion on an ongoing basis. How much of force, have been applied, to resolving agitations, realizing that agitation is one way that individuals use, or individuals and groups use to ventilate. So it's a ventilation process, a natural character, of difference. And the one major way to resolve it is just understanding, fostering understanding. And understanding comes when we are obviously and practically dialogic.
All right. Still on the issue of dialogue, that Yoruba group says that they are open to it, and that even the release of Sunday Igboho will be part of the negotiation with their dialogue. But, their secessionist agenda is what they really want. So how can the government achieve this when, the Constitution says Nigeria is an indissoluble entity?
Well, Oji, I think that the question of asking for secession is just an entry point to the dialogue table, because that's already foreclosed, that we are one indissoluble entity. But what matters is for us to manage differences, for us to resolve issues that are contentious, issues that ordinarily amount to exclusion of some sections, or unequal representation of some sections, where sections feel that they're not getting the adequate bite of the cherry, and they have that right to be concerned and to agitate. And when they feel further pain, they talk about secession. So secession is just an entry point to negotiation. By the time we get to the table, of course, people will begin to tone down. It's actually natural for you to shoot hard from a distance, but when you sit face to face with other people, other persons, you probably realize that they are humans like yourself. They have the same feelings, they have the same disappointments, they are filled with inadequacies. So they're not too different. People who you probably think are cheating you are also dissatisfied. They also have anger, and by the time you are seeing some similarity, you begin to tone down. You naturally will realize that the solution is not actually secession. It's just about understanding, if I've been cheated before, and if it is still continuing, how do you resolve it? There's no section of this country that is completely satisfied, irrespective of what we think, and there's no section that is completely comfortable, irrespective of what we think. There are fears that are concerned, but how do we resolve this? Again, it takes us back to the question of dialogue, sitting around the table and fostering understanding. But let's not forget the question of leadership too. Leadership would rightly have to galvanize this, reassuring us that they do not pander to the interest of a section. We should not necessarily be reminded of our difference. We should just be told in action and in words that we're a collective, and all actions coming from the top should be geared towards consolidating this collectivity.
All right. They also have insisted that Sunday Igboho has committed no crime at all, by agitating for secession from the Nigerian state, even when the Constitution doesn't allow it. Now, the Attorney General has insisted that Igboho has committed a crime. Now, what do you even make of all of those allegations leveled against Sunday Igboho?
Well, first, I just remember something that lawyers call nulli prosecute, which can come in handy in explaining one of the questions you asked earlier. That if issues are resolved out of court, you can come to an agreement and you withdraw the court cases, and we'll now move forward. So lawyers have different ways around these things. But coming to your question again, it's okay for the Attorney General to come out with a list of charges. It's always the case. Of course, if you are looking at it from the tangible point of view, there are practical things that, in the eye of the law, practical offenses that he will probably have committed in the eye of the law, and these things can be as long as possible. But when you come to reviewing them, when there's an understanding, when you want to build peace, of course you can change your mind, because if you say you want to go continue in court, how long do you imagine that these court cases will last? And do not forget, by the time you remain in court, of course, tension will still be on ground. There will still be absence of peace. It's not going to stop agitation. Let's look at it. For instance, Nnamdi Kanu has been apprehended. Sunday Igboho is on the run, and the state is looking after them. Has it brought about peace? It hasn't. It doesn't deter other sections of agitators. We are still having destructions on the ground of ventilation here and there. We are still having protests. These things are not solutions, and that's the point we're making. So perhaps we should just face the issue squarely, realizing that we are one. And against the background of the needs to consolidate our unity, funded on appropriate pronouncement, right actions on the part of leaders, so that they'll be seen as decentered people. People who have a plural mindset, a mindset that is geared towards the generality of the Nigerian population, and not just a section of that population.
All right, Dr. Adini, I would really love to have your thoughts on the old video of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, which in October of 1969, when he spoke in appealing to the Igbos, when he spoke about the Igbos moving away from what he called the Biafran tyranny. If you situate that with what IPOB is doing today, or until the Anambra election was doing, will you think that that sort of appeal is also necessary at this time? And then, given the fact that IPOD played an important role in ensuring peace by just being silent and not, adding sort to injury towards the Anambra election, do you think that that should give a new way of looking at this organization and in how government should deal with them, again using the background of what Dr. Azikiwe said in 1969?
Yeah, thank you very much, Steve. And I watched that video yesterday, especially when OG presented it on our show, yesterday morning. And it's also very, very instructive. Let's not forget the sage statues of that illustrious Nigerian citizen. And of course, what he said in the late 60s, still connect. We can still connect with it even many years after. It just shows that these are visionary leaders that Nigeria means. I mean, people like Ahmadu Bello, like Obafemi Awolowo, visionary leaders whose feats and pronouncements are still relevant to us, even as we are in contemporary Nigeria. Very relevant. I agree with you. And of course, we can also see what just happened in Anambra State. The elections held, IPOD pulled back. They didn't disrupt it, and of course we know that they could have, even if they cannot prevent it totally, they could have caused some disturbance, but they pulled back because there were appeals to them and they came to that understanding. So it just tells us that these people are not ghosts. These people are right with us. These people know what they are doing, and of course if there's the right approach, we'll understand that there can be peace at the end of the day. And of course, the Biafra question is just a symbol of anger. We have had questions of Biafra before, or semblances of Biafra. Let's not forget that even before Nnamdi Kanu, we have Ralph Owazurike, and of course in the South we have Kensaro Wiwa, and we have Isaac Adakaboro. So these people will keep coming up, but beyond the individuals, beyond the group, is the need for us to address the reason for their coming up. What are those factors that lead to the emergence of these agitators? That's the bigger picture we need to focus on. As a bigger brother, the bigger Nigerian brother, we should necessarily show concern for the dissatisfied individual, the dissatisfied group, by coming from a grace of a higher grace, not necessarily a sign of weakness, but a sign of being the bigger brother, with controlling state resources and able to come to the complaining, and listen to that the complaining and bring about some resolution of whatever the problem is in the interest of growth and development of the nation as a whole.
Right, Dr. Adeniyi, while we all agree that everyone has the right to self-determination, that, however, caused the civil war, led by Ojukwu. Azikiwe in that video said Ojukwu's legacy is one of a political imposter and a petty tyrant. I mean, that's how he described Ojukwu. Do you agree with him?
But they had their disagreement those days, and maybe disagreements maybe around personality differences and all of that, but however you look at it, these people have played their part in the evolution of the nation's history, whether rightly or wrongly, and largely we have forgiven them. We have moved forward. We understood why they did what they did in the past, but the nation has largely moved forward. And sometimes it may not be right for us to judge them, to judge the values of the past based on our contemporary values, So against that background, I would just say maybe we'll let that matter rest and let the souls of the legions, rest in peace, Eugenix.
I see you've been watching what's trending. And it's not Eugenix, it's Genix.
We forgive you, Dr. Adeniyi. But then let me...
thank you.
You're welcome. Let me add this to the discourse. If it does happen that the agitators and the federal government agree at some point, to sit down and negotiate and find political solution, how much of the coloration of amnesty that do you think this will bring, given what the federal government has done with the Niger Delta, some Niger Delta agitators? You mentioned Kensaro Wiwa in your response earlier, and you can see from the 25th anniversary, the memorial program that was done for him, people are saying, yes, you've granted him amnesty, but then we're also demanding, asking for an apology and an exoneration. So if the sort of sitting around the table between the Nigerian government and the agitators, secessionists, does happen, how much of the coloration of amnesty, will this bring on board? And do you think that would be acceptable to those who actually thought that they were fighting a good cause for their people?
Yes, Steve, very important questions. But I don't think government will. I think government will be careful this time going into another structured amnesty program. Considering some of the downsides of the ongoing amnesty. Yes, it helped. The last one helped really in shoring up production capacity, oil production capacity on an everyday basis. There was a marked difference between what it was before the amnesty and after the amnesty. But in the overall, we just saw that it's something that can be endless, because something that you probably cannot define the end. And of course, after training these young persons, where are the jobs, to absorb them? So there are fundamental issues, with a structured amnesty program. There are questions around the resources and about questions around sustainability. And of course, you can remember in the Jonathan period, he mooted the idea of amnesty for Boko Haram people. Yes, they are nihilists, they rejected it, we understand that very well. But in contemporary times, those who are agitating are not necessarily economic agitators like Boko Haram, the political the other ones we are seeing. They are political agitators, and in political agitation, amnesty may not really be the solution. The one that Yar'Adua came out with was to solve the problem of exclusion in the Niger Delta. It was essentially economic. So the spheres are different, and we may not be thinking about it in that regard. But in this other regard, there are other ways in which they can be assuaged, and government has this many tactics and strategies that they can deploy, really. I mean, it's not something, I beg your pardon, that we can probably talk about on television, but there are different ways of massaging egos, really, especially within the context of the Nigerian system. I'm not talking about bribery, but there are other ways.
Reaching out, maybe. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, Professor Adeniyi, thank you for joining.
Thank you so much for watching this video together with me. Like I said before, if it is your first time of coming across my YouTube channel and you like what I do, please subscribe, put on your notification bell, share this video, leave your comment in the comment section. You are free to criticize, but let us do it always constructively. Remain blessed. I appreciate your massive support, and I love and cherish each and every one of you. Until I meet you again in my next video, for now we say bye-bye.